Welcome to the Ambitious Coach Lab, powered by 90. I'm your host, Dr. Cam Lawson. Each week, we explore the real tactics, tough conversations, and breakthrough moments that drive coaching success. Let's jump into today's episode. All right. Well, we've got Andrew Gissal, Certified EOS Implementer with us today, based out of Greenville, South Carolina, which just so happens to be where I'm based out of too. So super excited about that. Being able to talk to a fellow Greenvillian living in G Vegas, whatever you want to call it, all the different terms. But super excited to be able to talk with you just about how you've grown your practice and just deep dive into a little bit about how you are really intentional about how you manage your practice. But tell us a little bit of kind of your entrepreneurial journey and how you became an EOS implementer. I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. First of all, Cam, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Love to be here. Love what you guys are doing with this ambitious coast. Hopefully, I'm ambitious enough to maybe spark something for one or two people out there listening.
There we go. I love it.
Yeah. So, the question is kind of from my perspective, the entrepreneurial journey. And man, it's been a little bit of a ride from an entrepreneurial perspective. Coming out of school, I worked at a data visualization company, a startup data visualization company, and led our sales and marketing efforts through that. Through that experience, we actually had a shrink wrap software along with the services arm. So we would actually sell through the channel, sell directly to businesses, but we also would do a lot of servicing ourselves. It was a pretty technical application, so sometimes you needed a little bit more of a hand holding for implementation. That got to a point where we had a little bit of an internal battle of a services business and a product business, creating a little bit of conflict of what's right for the customer. Is it the customer as an overall customer base, or is it the customer as like
Mm.
this one implementation that we're trying to do
Yeah.
and support? So through that experience, I actually ended up leaving that organization and entering into the private equity firm where I supported onboarding new clients. And through that experience, fast forward a couple of years, I actually had the opportunity to kind of pull out some of that service-based business out of the original company that I was part of and kick off and build a new business from a technical services arm of what it was. And so we did that. I did that with two partners, and we built that business for quite a while, ran that on EOS, which is how I found the EOS world in itself. And now I'm doing EOS full time. So a little bit about the
Love
background.
that. Did you guys work with an implementer, is what they call it, the coaches? Did you guys work with one, or did you self implement?
Yeah, we did. We did work with the implementer. Actually, the first time I was introduced to EOS was at the data visualization company. So that
Oh,
was my
very cool.
first introduction to it. Coming out of Detroit, right? EOS is bred in Detroit, so that was back in I want to say 2015 that I was
Okay.
first introduced to it. That was the first interaction I had.
Yeah. So, what made you kind of want to go down that path of exploring actually being an implementer? Did you dialogue with the implementer you guys used, or was it kind of external from that?
No, I actually kind of fell into it, to be
Oh,
honest. I never saw myself as a coach. In our data services company, I'm not that technical, so I can't code myself. I just would know I could understand the business problem from a high level perspective and then use technology, use data to solve those problems. And so I'd find myself, and we serviced a lot of small, mid sized companies, a lot of manufacturers, logistics. And in those conversations, I'd be dealing with the leadership team, the owner of the business, and we would be talking about, okay, what information do you want to see that you don't currently see? And we would build a product or a solution in order to help them do that. Well, oftentimes we would do that, but then they would go, okay, now what do I do with this information? How do I actually effectively use this information? So I found myself, because we were running NEOS, sharing a lot of the methodologies with clients. And it came to a point where I had 4 or 5 clients saying, "Hey, we wanna do this with you. Will you help us use EOS, and help us understand how to do this more effectively?" So I originally went through this certification program to help my current clients through that
Wow.
process, then fell in love with that side of the world, and fast forward 3 years later, and now I'm doing it full time.
How cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's a fascinating, angle that kind of intentional with just being able to kinda help client side inside the business and then
Yeah.
translating into more actually just doing it.
Mhm.
So fast forward now to kinda where we're at today. What does, a traditional kinda day look like for you as you're going out? Obviously, right now when we're recording is, at the end of November, so, very busy time for coaches as everyone's going into annual planning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, typical day to me, and it's different every day. It's very different every day. I really break it up into 3 days. So this comes from Dan Sullivan, and one day is a focus day, a different day is a buffer day, and a third day is a free day. So a focus day is the days that I'm doing the work that I'm getting paid to do. Okay.
Gotcha.
So that is in the work with the clients. I do that in a session. We do full day sessions with clients. So that's what a focus day is for me. On a typical day like that, it's a 7 hour session plus or minus an hour, usually about 8 hours or so with that client. That's a focus day. A buffer day to me is a day like today. It's days that I catch up on items. I may be doing some business development. It may be creating a better process internally, supporting a client through something that came out of a session, having meetings, and then the third day is a free day, which is I'm kind of turned off from all of it. So typical, what would you think of as like a typical Saturday or a Sunday?
That's so good. I feel like that allows you to be hyper focused. And one of the things that you've talked a lot about as we've dialogued on this, obviously being close proximity, we've been able to hang out quite a bit. But you talk a lot about staying in your lane and being hyper
Mhm.
focused in going after, for instance, there are lots of different things now out there from coaching certifications to different systems and all this, and obviously you're in the EOS lane. But what does staying in the lane to you mean as a coach, and what is the value of that?
Yeah. When I think about staying in my lane, a lot of what we do is a one man show, right? So I have team members that are there supporting and doing different things. However, the actual deliverable of being in the room with the client, it's me, right? So when I think about scalability in that, I can only scale the inventory days that I have. So go back to the focus day, buffer day, free day. I've pre-planned that 12 months in advance. So for
Wow.
all of next year, I know that I have 109 focus days. So that's what I have available in my calendar that's appropriate for the amount of buffer days I need, the amount of free days I need to be the best coach I can be. So I distill that down, and 109 days, that's about 20 clients or so that I can kind of manage. And so when I think about staying in my lane, I think about um, the deliverable I'm giving at the end of the day. What is the deliverable I'm doing? What's the capacity that I have? And then like there's this load versus limit perspective. And so when I look at that, I'm looking at in that 109 days, what is the best value that I can bring to my clients and what can I be best in the world at? And if I can be the best in the world at helping them implement EOS fully through the organization, top to bottom, create this system, create a cadence, and in turn fall in love with their business, with the people that are in their business, right? Get their life back, then to me, that is my lane, right? It's kind of helps me focus on what I need to do today in order to fill those 109 slots.
I love that. That's so good because now my brain. I'm curious about how you came to I guess intentionality is probably the best way to put that, of design, of managing your practice. Let's just take the 3-day, system, if you will. W were you always that organized in the way that you kinda
Oh
built your
my
practice, or did that
heck
morph
no.
over time? I take that as a no.
Yeah, hell no was I was never that organized. It was out of necessity
Mm,
because I think what happens when you start building a practice is you're throwing everything against the wall and doing all the energies just to try to find what works.
mm,
And then you turn around and you go, "Oh my gosh, I'd put all this energy out there, and for what? Like, at the end of the day, this is what I'm trying to do, and how is all this energy when I look at it to actually help me do this?" And so there was a point, I don't know, about 2 years ago where I looked at it and I had 2 weeks that I had 10 sessions in, and then the next 2 weeks I had 0 sessions in because it just
mm.
kind of fell that way, and I've dropped the ball in some areas of follow-up that I shouldn't have, and then I had times of downtime, and so really the intentionality came out of 2 things. One was realizing that I don't have an unlimited amount of energy,
Mm.
and that the energy that and the time that I put to things, they have to be high value to me and to my clients and to the goals. And then secondly, it came out of like this necessity to get more control to make sure that my energy level stays where it needs to stay.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes total sense, and, I mean, I feel like the beneficiary of that then is the client when you can go and "Alright, I have these specific dates that would work." They're able to kinda coordinate that based on where they're at, and then that
mhm,
also is gonna give you time into doing the business development, because even at 90, we've really thought through a lot of, basically different stages of growing, a business coaching practice, right? So, you first starting out trying to get that first client, really first 5 clients, and we call that the survive stage. And so it sounds like when you're first, that is, you have really no structure around. Then you start to get to a point where you have a couple clients and you're sustaining growth now, right? And it sounds like that's, really where you started to explore a little bit more of the intentionality behind finding the all right, let me get a little bit of order and structure around
mhm.
doing this, cuz to your point, how do I scale this? I can't just be reactive. Let me be a little bit more proactive. And so then I feel like the clients are just going to benefit tremendously from that, because then you have all your ducks in a row. You know exactly where you're at. You're not building these just redlining moments where you're going through and just trying to gun business development or gun sessions and then not thinking about rest. I'm sure that was not a lot of that was happening, but now you're building that in on a regular basis.
Yeah, and you talk through the stages of growth of growing a practice, the survive, right? And then the thrive, I think is what you called it.
So,
Like it's the
survive, then you're gonna go into sustain, then
sustain.
scale, and then you're gonna go into succeed, and then steward.
Okay. So I think about the just the first 2 stages there, right? Survive and sustain. Um, I had a different experience because I was doing this while running a data services business as well.
Wow.
So from my survive was very different. It was a
Mhm.
value add to what we were already doing.
Right.
And so the survive for me and then the sustain kind of the need for the intentional aptitude side of the practice management came out of having to run this business along with of accidentally building a coaching practice.
Mm,
Um, I didn't even foresee what it meant to do a coaching practice. I just said, "Hey, I got clients asking for this. Why would I not do this? I'm gonna go through the process. Let's do it, and I'm gonna help them." And walked out day one with 4 clients.
wow.
And so but then you start to realize, well, that's a 2 to 3 year relationship, and here's the cadence we need to do, and this is what it looks like. And then all of a sudden, 4 turns into 10. And it's like, hold on, this is a full time job in itself, and I'm doing this. So it came out of the necessity of my survive and sustain. It was very different than I think
Mm.
most people's as they go into coaching, which actually I just was talking to another implementer about this, about burning the boats as you go into coaching. Um, and
Define what that means for those that don't know.
yeah, so burning the boats is really letting go of the day to day or whatever you have today in order to go full time into the next adventure. And there's it's very common to say you need to burn the boats, just pull the plug and go at it 100% because that will give you that momentum you need. Otherwise, you'll never take it seriously. My experience was very different. My experience was um, I could show up and I did not need any of those clients in the beginning, not a single one, right? So, from my livelihood, from my perspective, I was running a data services business and I was helping a few clients with this side. So, the confidence that I had in actually supporting them through implementing a system like EOS, really the confidence carried through with the how I was able to actually show up in the room for them,
Mm,
in service to them rather than coming at a place of being fearful.
mm,
And so it's always just a little bit interesting on that conversation. I actually really enjoyed the path I took. I wouldn't have changed that any different. I like doing both that together. And then even using the system I teach to get to a point where I now 4 hours a week can spend in the data services company and have an integrator and have the structure in place where I don't need to be in it all,
yeah.
every day where I can spend time coaching.
Yeah, I love that. Now, on the practice management behind this,
Mhm.
you've said a couple times, to grow externally, you have to grow internally, and kind of focusing in on some of those concepts that you know all the way from the people that you're surrounding yourself with whether it's
Mhm.
strategic partnerships or peers that are in the same system or other coaches, and then even process and having the way you do things. Like, let's talk a little bit about that, of how you have kind of been intentional about growing, internally first.
So, yeah, when we think about this idea of growing internally before you grow externally, I think of a couple of things. One is you need to have some revenue, you have to have some success in order to know what you need to grow internally, right? So, land a couple clients, get some momentum going there. But then I from my perspective is then it's the shift of how do I manage things effectively for scalability
Mm,
and what feels good to me, right? Like, what do I want? I'm in this coaching business because I want more control of my own life too, right? And in service to my clients. So I always want to look at the end and then work backwards. So land when I landed a few clients, I'm running those, putting a lot of effort into those. And then from an intentionality perspective, I got to a point where the data services business and having a handful of EOS clients, I started dropping the ball. Like I could just feel it. Like I wouldn't follow up as often as I should have. I'd say I'd do something and I maybe have gotten 50% through it. And so to me, it was this like out of integrity perspective that I felt like I was only at 70% in everything I was doing. And so to me, that was the time to really look at how this thing is structured in order to sustain
mm,
and to scale. And so that's when I put a lot of effort into the data services of getting that set up, putting that structure in place, and then doing the same thing for my coaching business. And when I look at that, looking at from the end goal, right? We talked about 100 sessions. That's the goal, right? And then I look at from that side, who 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 like who can help those clients as effective as possible,
mm,
and that became my inner circle as far as like what you would call connectors or people that can help. I think of connectors as not only people that can connect you into accounts that you can help, but also who are people that I can introduce into my clients that can solve problems that I see and we uncover in our sessions together. And so building, like I actually built a accountability chart for value add partnerships of mine,
Huh.
that if there's a marketing seat that somebody's struggling with marketing, I have my person I'm going to introduce, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with operations, same thing with sales, same thing with finance. And so building that and really understanding that relationship has really helped. And then that's where I spend my time. And then from a practice management perspective, that calendar I told you about is the foundation of everything.
Mm.
Coming out of that, now it's okay. We know when I schedule sessions a year in advance, right? We schedule communication 2 weeks in advance. So it's very systematic behind the
Mm.
scenes, that helps in that. That was a long answer, but hopefully it kind
Yeah.
of connects some of it.
No, that's great. And then talk to me a little bit about the importance of community among peers. Obviously,
Mm,
you have your group, but how is that played into? Let's just take it from a high level. Your success as a coach from a holistic standpoint.
yeah. Um, Man, having peers that understand the ups and downs of this world is vital. It's I do not know how somebody can do it without it. I'll be really honest. I have a small group of two other coaches that we meet weekly. We get together quarterly. We're on the phone every couple days. If you leave a session or you're struggling with something, and just jump on the phone and kind of walk through that. That peer relationship is really important to understand and navigate the world of coaching.
Hmm.
There's another relationship that's really, really important, which is the personal relationship, right? Like if you're married, so my wife Stacy and I, like that relationship, if out of all of them, are the most important to me, because being an entrepreneur, being a coach has a lot of personal ups and downs, a lot of feelings of, am I enough? How am I adding enough value? Am I navigating these things right? Times where you put in energy and it doesn't always turn out the way you want. And so having a spouse that's in your corner and that just understands the journey a little bit. And I'm lucky Stacy, my wife's an entrepreneur herself. So understanding the journey really, really helps from
Mm.
the emotional perspective of
Yeah.
things. And then a peer group around more of the tactical, how do we handle certain situations, and obviously there's some emotional support there too.
No, that's great. Yeah, let's dialogue. It sparked a question, and
Hmm.
where you do have. So I came from an organization that implemented EOS with an implementer. We did it on 90, so we went through that whole process, right? And I will never forget that focus day where you go in and we're super amped, excited to jump in, and it's just so much information, right? You're high intensity, you're going
Yeah.
at things because you're gonna solve world problems and like all the things, right? So many goals.
One day to
Right.
solve all the problems.
Exactly. And it obviously does not happen. You come out with more issues and you're like, what?
Yeah.
But the really obviously it's very taxing from the client's perspective. I remember we went out to a steakhouse afterwards. We went to Roost actually, and we all went and kind of just decompressed a little bit, right? Just breathe. It's like wow, that was really intense, really cool. But I feel like a lot of times it's not talked. So everybody kind of we talk about the clients and they're drinking from a fire hose, but let's take it from the coach's perspective because after a session, I mean, are you mentally exhausted? I mean, from having to kind of manage that because there is an art to
Hmm.
knowing when to interject and when to let them kind of go at it to where hopefully stopping before fists are thrown. But that there's an art to that. But does that take a toll on you emotionally from a very high intense session? And how do you kind of recoup from that?
Yeah, really good question. When I think about the emotional toll, from being a coach in those rooms. It really depends on the client. It really goes, we always say that clients are like snowflakes. They're all a little bit different, and they all need us to be a little bit different for what they need. And so I think from an emotional taxing side, it's usually who do they need me to be, and what does this group need? What does this team need? And how can I harness that in the room and make sure that that's part of that? Um, so when I look at it from an entity perspective of the team, saying what is this overall team, and all these little things are just components and just on levers and issues as a team, all these things, it really helps because that's really what we're there for. If you let yourself get involved in the emotions of the people,
Mm,
it's a little bit more taxing, from that perspective. Obviously, the emotions of the people are how this thing comes together, but I believe that I'm there to help them see the overall, from that side. So, all that being said, yes, it's 100% emotionally taxing, as just as much as you'd think as sitting in the other seat.
yeah.
As you go forward with the team, in the beginning, you're trying to learn the team, so it's a little bit more emotionally taxing as you get into a relationship with the team. But there's little things that I do. I get up before a session, no matter when, try to get up and do a workout, even if it's an early session, just to clear my mind, come into it, do that. And then after the session, I don't pack up and go. I usually will sit and work for about an hour. So, recapping, setting the team up, sending any communication to them that I promised during the session, but then check in on what other emails came in during the day or just kind of work for that hour because it really helps me decompress.
Mm.
So then when I get home, I can be present at home. Not that I'm perfect in all of that all the time, but actually sitting there for an hour after really is something I found that's helped.
Do you find that's awesome. Do you find that, just like a good football team, soccer team, basketball team watches film afterwards? Obviously, you're probably not recording the session, but do you have a time where you reflect on how this session went, kind of replaying where maybe things went awry or specific things? Do you replay those in your head, or is it kind of just all right? We're going to keep moving forward.
Yeah, uh, 100 yeah, I spend way too much time reflecting.
There's obviously a limit,
Yeah,
right? It's
I
healthy.
think that is one thing and that's where that peer group comes in
Mm,
so good because you start overthinking, "Ooh, could I have navigated that better, or should I have pushed here more?" And that's where that T group I'll pick up the phone, Roy Pelkey and Jeff Ruby are my guys. I'm picking up that phone and having a quick conversation,
mm,
and the good thing about, those relationships is they'll tell me, "Yeah, I could see where you could navigate that differently in the future,"
mm.
or, "What are you talking about? Get out of your head and go home and relax,"
Yeah.
type of a thing, so.
That's good.
Mhm,
So in closing here, I always like to ask just a couple questions of the guests that we have on. But tell me, if you were gonna start over with
mhm.
rookie Andrew, with all the knowledge and experience that you have now, what would you tell rookie Andrew getting started out?
Yeah, really good question. So sitting today, what would I tell Andrew first starting in coaching? I would say that, I want to give credit on this quote, and I feel so bad I can't give credit. I heard this from another coach, but it says that there's a lot of doors of opportunity in this world, and if we're smart, we can open a few doors. If we're brilliant, we can probably open a few more. But if we're vibrant, doors will open for us.
Ooh,
And so, what that means to me is, don't worry about what other people are doing on LinkedIn. Don't worry about what other people are doing 5 different marketing channels and spending time in this and spending time in that. That's the smart and brilliant stuff, right? The most important thing for me is to be me authentically 100% of the time. And to me, what that looks like, I'm talking to Andrew, is Andrew, don't worry about what everybody else is doing and be vibrant throughout your day. You know, I like to go to the gym, I like to play golf, I like water sports, I like to meet people for coffee. So go do those things, be as vibrant as possible, talk about what you're passionate about, and everything else will kind of fall into place.
Man, that's good. That's a word for all of us. I feel like it's so easy to compare and look at, oh, well,
Mhm,
this person's doing this. I got to do this. And then you are just exhausted trying to keep up with all the new trends. And you're always a year behind. At least I feel like I am. And, it's just, it can be exhausting. But that's a good word to
mhm.
find those things that make you vibrant, and those opportunities are going to come. And then this is a little bit more of a not personal question, but tell us what a lesson you're in the middle of learning right now.
Yeah, really good question. I'm in the middle of learning a lot of lessons. I don't
Aren't
think
we
I'm gonna
all?
stop learning lessons. I think one thing that I'm really in the middle of learning is the power of simplicity.
Hmm,
And what I mean by that is our world is complex. Our businesses are complex. Everything about uh, running a practice and hiring practice managers and onboarding clients and marketing and all these things, it all can feel really complex.
hmm,
And to the extent that I let that complexity win, right, that creates chaos, ambiguity, n- um, confusion. And so, really, really, really owning what the word simplicity means,
hmm.
not only for myself, for my team, but for my clients and how they work through the world too. Which simplicity usually means, a lot of people don't understand this, that simplicity to me is elimination. So how do we eliminate things to get down to the simplest form? And elimination is hard for a lot of people, and so that's kind of what I'm in the middle of learning right now is the power of elimination.
Man, I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody wants to get in touch with you, learn more about you, or maybe even dialogue on some of the things we talked about today. What is the best place to get in touch with you?
Yeah. Luckily, I have a very unique name. So you can just Google Andrew Geisel, and I'm the only one that pops up, Gissal. But really, probably LinkedIn is probably the best place. It's an easy platform to jump on and connect. But yeah, just Andrew, last name Geisel, Gissal is the best, probably the best way.
Love it. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some insights. I know I took a lot away from it. I really love the 3-day intentionality. I'm so impressed that you're planning that out a year in advance. That's something else. I started with the just what are the 3 things I need to accomplish tomorrow from Shine and
Mhm.
Gino's book. But I think there's a lot of wisdom in that for coaches to have your focus days, have your uh, business development, your
Mhm.
what's the term that you
Buffer.
the buffer day, right? And then your
Mhm.
rest days. Being able to have those 3 because each one of those is so valuable. And so I think that's something that is at least a takeaway for me to be able to be more intentional about that, to have those where I'm going in and not just breaking it out based on like hours of a day, but a day. I think that's a really good takeaway for a lot of coaches. But as we wrap up, if you are a business coach, a consultant, and an advisor, and you want to create an ambitious coaching practice like Andrew's, where you're delivering meaningful work on your terms and living that ideal lifestyle, I want to hear from you. What questions do you have? We want to start baking in more conversational where we're asking ambitious coaches questions that you all have. So feel free to reach out at me directly. we'll bring those onto the show. We'll continue to have conversations with coaches like Andrew, and we'll continue to find guests that hopefully inspire you as you're on the journey of building an ambitious coaching practice. Thanks, guys.
That's it for today's episode of the Ambitious Coach Lab. My hope is that something here helps you sharpen your craft and keep building a coaching practice you're proud of. Before we wrap, a quick thank you to our sponsor, 90. If you're coaching leadership teams, having your clients run their entire world in 90 truly elevates your work. Vision, rocks, scorecards, issues, it all lives in one centralized place. The clarity keeps your clients aligned between sessions and makes every conversation you have with them more focused and more impactful. I've used 90 with over 500 leadership teams, and I can tell you it makes great companies better and great coaches even more effective. Feel free to use promo code AC20 for 20% off. Again, that's AC20 for 20% off. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm Cam, cheering you on as you grow your ambitious coaching practice. We'll see you next time.